Здравейте, уважаеми зрители! Ето ни във втората част на особено интересния разговор, който водим с господин Робъртс. Продължаваме на английски, както беше и в първата част. Надявам се субтитрите да са достатъчно ясни, за да може всички да видят и да разберат това, което казва господина. Mr. Roberts, let's start with this that we have said during the break, and you told me that United States right now is in a situation that is very close to revolution.
Yes. President Trump has undertaken to overthrow the American establishment that has turned completely corrupt, that's been using the federal budget to enrich itself, not to serve any public purpose. The amount of corruption is extraordinary, and this constitutes the overthrow of an establishment that's been entrenched for decades. This is why there's so much criticism of Trump, and this is why his life remains in danger from assassination. He is taking the American budget away from the establishment that has used it to enrich themselves, to the neglect of all public purposes. This is clearly revolutionary. You can see it in his appointments. You can see it in the dismissal of officials in the government. You can see it in the freeze on a wide range of budget expenditures. You can see it in the investigations of government officials who have records of corruption. Many of them, I think, will be indicted. And we just saw the letter from the Attorney General of the United States to the new FBI chief, pointing out that the FBI was defying her order to release the Epstein documents. Yes. Well, when have you ever seen an Attorney General take a stand like that? Never. So this is a determined organization, determined people, and they are in the process of trying to take the country back from a totally corrupt establishment. We've never seen the likes of this.
Yeah, and we can be sure what the outcome will be.
No, we can't.
Yes. There is one question that over the last few months is going on in the internet places and sites. The question is, what exactly United States are producing right now, and why are they still the first economy of the world? What is the main thing? Because we can see in China everything that we can touch. It's written made in China. For example, in Bulgaria, it's not very often to see even cars from United States.
Yes, well, you know, the United States is responsible for China's development because the United States moved its manufacturing facilities to China to take advantage of lower cost labor, so the executives could have performance bonuses. In other words, the labor cost savings went into the corporate profits and into the pockets of shareholders and executives. And so the corporate world sold out the American people. which is another indication of how corrupt the society became under the liberal leadership. So, what does the United States produce? That's what Trump's trying to change. They produce propaganda, weapons, and they sell scrap paper and scrap metal. And they get away with this because the dollar is the reserve currency. And that means the United States can always finance its deficits. Why? Because the dollar is the central bank reserves of all the other countries. So they're glad to have the treasury debt. If the United States deficit goes up, all it means is the reserves of the world banking system go up.
Yeah, but right now the country debt of United States, it's so high. It's like, isn't it dangerous for the whole world, this economic bubble that is happening?
No, it's only dangerous to the United States if the dollar loses its reserve currency role. Because if the dollar loses that role, there's no reason for the foreign central banks to buy treasury debt in order to hold its reserves. So as long as the dollar is the reserve currency, the U.S. debt is not a problem for anyone.
I see.
As I said, if the debt goes up, it means the reserves of the world banking system go up. This is another reason, of course, that Trump wants to de-weaponize the dollar, because it's the weaponization of the dollar that is eroding the dollar as world reserve currency. So he is quite determined to stop this weaponized use of the dollar, because it scares people away from holding reserves in dollars. Look, they stole the Russian central bank reserves that were held in dollars.
Yes.
So people say, gosh, they may steal ours too. Let's hold our reserves in something else. What else? Gold. And they're talking about a BRICS currency, which doesn't exist, but might. I think it would be difficult for the BRICS to agree, because whose currency will have the power of being the reserve currency? Russia's, China's, India's?
Yeah, that will be challenge.
That'll be, so I think it'll be very difficult for a BRICS currency for that reason. And so if Trump succeeds and doesn't lose his way, doesn't get bad advice, the pressure of sanctions will disappear, the dollar will cease being weaponized, and everybody will go back to using it. And then Trump and Elon Musk are committed to reducing the debt. They say by $1 trillion this year. Well, that's good. And it will be easy to reduce the debt, because it's basically been the creation of theft. The establishment is stealing from the budget. That's why it's so big. They put money in there and then they steal it. And if Trump and Musk stop that, I mean, the Democrat judges will try to block it, but I don't think they'll be able to. So, in other words, as bad as the situation is, there's actually now an effort to change it. And so I say, give Trump a chance and see if he's as strong as the establishment or stronger. If the establishment proves to be the strongest, he'll be defeated. If he proves to be the strongest, he will win. And so I'm all for his strength, because otherwise there's no hope at all.
Yes, that's true. But from the beginning of our conversation, first part and now this part, we're speaking mostly about economics, about money, about business. Is this the key for the society, the capitalistic view, or it's absolutely the normal human being goal, the money? Or there is an ideology or something else?
I think the age of ideology is gone. Ideology was important to the 20th century Cold War because of communism and the belief that they had the goal of world revolution. That may have been largely propaganda, I don't know, but it was an element. In the 21st century, the Cold War has had nothing to do with ideology. It's had to do with the neoconservative drive for hegemony, which also meant hegemony for Israel. Because the American neoconservatives are almost entirely Zionists. And so American hegemony also meant Israeli hegemony in the Middle East. So maybe that was an ideological part of it. But it was really just power. Trump has disavowed that. So, but your question goes deeper. What has also happened to America, and not just the loss of its industry to China, the theft of the people's assets by the establishment, but the same liberal misrule has eroded the morals of the country, the character of the people. The liberal misrule, they legalized sexual perversity. They were in the process of turning white citizens into second-class citizens who had less rights than favored minorities, than even less rights than immigrants. They were, in other words, destroying equality under the law, which of course destroys the country. So the United States has had many years of this kind of assault. You know, in the universities, they assault Western civilization. Western civilization is evil, it's racist, it exploits people, other peoples. They have taught several generations of university graduates to dislike their own country. So this is highly corrosive of a nation when you destroy the structure of belief. And, you know, the same thing has been going on in Germany since World War II. So what can Trump do about that? I don't know. That I just don't know what, and I don't even know that will get his attention because for Trump, business is success, and so we may see a recovery in one area, but it may not happen in another, which is the character of the people. How do we restore normality?
Yeah, it's another work for one day. Unfortunately, right. Especially when it was strategic politics over the last few years. We have missed to speak about China at this picture that we are drawing at the moment, because you told us that United States helped China for their development after the end of the Cold War by moving some of, or maybe the bigger part of the production over there. But what is the situation at the moment? I don't think that China needs United States as a supporter right now, maybe as a partner or enemy. What exactly is the situation between those two countries?
Well, in a way, they are partners because so many of the major American firms locate their production in China for the goods that they sell to Americans. Mm-hmm. For example, Apple, the Apple computers, the iPhones, the Apple watches, these are all made in China, but they're marketed in the United States. Mm-hmm. Nike shoes, Levi jeans, you know, just about every American product that we're used to, they're made with Chinese labor and sold to American consumers. And so our firms are essentially trapped in China. I mean, the notion of a war with China is perplexing. I mean, China could simply nationalize all the companies. All of us, you know, Apple is now Chinese, Nike, Levi, Strauss, all of them.
Yep. But so at the moment, United States, as far as I'm understanding, they need this production back in United States to support the economy.
Mm-hmm. They need the jobs to come home.
Exactly.
But now that China's developed, it doesn't need them. And the Chinese have a huge population. It would be probably the largest internal market in the world. Mm-hmm. And when you have a large internal market, you don't need foreign trade. When I was a student in economics, foreign trade was completely unimportant to the United States because we had a huge internal market. Mm-hmm. And foreign trade accounted for almost nothing in our national income. So the Chinese can develop their own markets internally. They have all of the Asian markets. So the notion that they need the American firms to still produce in China, that's not true. The firms being there taught China business know-how, transferred technology, and got them going. And that's why the Chinese developed so rapidly, surprising the strategic planners in the United States, who said it would be 50 years before China developed. Well, it was 5 years. So there's no real reason for any conflict with China. They've hardly begun developing their internal market.
I see. Okay. What are the most important challenges that the global political elite have to solve over the next, let's say, 5 years?
Their own growing irrelevance. Who needs a global political elite? What are they good for? Nothing. Self-importance. No one needs them. What do? I think the world's tired of all this globalism stuff. People want to be sovereign.
Yes.
They want to look at Hungary holding on to its sovereignty. Look at Serbia trying to hold on to its sovereignty. Putin, he announced to the world in 2007 at the Munich Security Conference, we are a sovereign nation. We don't believe all this unipolar crap. China, who is China going to put themselves under some global elite's thumb? Of course not. No. All of that propaganda era is over. We see in the new German party a demand for nationalist sovereignty. Even the Poles, the Polish, we're sovereign. So I think the global elite is they're expired.
Well, for me that sounds wonderful, but it's also for our viewers and a lot of thinking people, it's wonderful. But here in Bulgaria, I guess United States, you have such a quote that says that in the end, when the beast knows that it's about to his end, he's fighting the worse. That was the reason why I asked you for the next 5 years, because if this is the end of that globalization ideologic or whatever it is, right now it's the most critical moment.
Well, you see, it's the case that a lot of governments are behind the time. They're still thinking about globalism and the World Economic Forum and one world and all this. Well, that's past. Trump and Putin don't talk that language. And apparently neither does China. So if you have the three most powerful countries and they don't talk that language, then that language is dead. That time is over. And the Bulgarian intellectuals and professors and government may not realize that.
Especially the political persons that still believe that everything will be the same like before.
That's right. And they're used to being paid. They're used to being paid. USAID, paying them. National Endowment for Democracy, paying them. The American Military Security Complex, paying them. The Pentagon, paying them. They're used to being paid, and so they speak. But that language is changing with Trump, and they haven't caught on. Or maybe they think he'll be assassinated and the whole thing will be over. So, but even if he is, Putin doesn't talk that language, and the Chinese don't. And I can't see India putting itself under somebody's thumb, some global thumb. And what kind of global thumb could possibly sit on India, China, Russia?
Yes, exactly. And
there's no power on earth that can do that. And so the World Economic Forum is a lot of hot air.
And when
it doesn't serve interest of anyone except a few.
But obviously those few, they really wanted to rule the world because they believe that they know the best.
They're finished.
Okay, but perhaps it will be the last question for our conversation. How do you see the future world unipolar, polar, multipolar, or it will be, everything will be based on independency of the countries. I mean, those blocks that have been, obviously they're dead, there will be a new blocks creating, or everybody will be for themselves?
Yeah, I think it'll be a multipolar world. I think it will eventually, I mean, assuming it continues to develop, it will eventually be a world without a reserve currency. Every country will trade in its own currency. This forces each government to maintain proper economic conditions so that its currency has value. Excuse me.
Bless you.
And so you would have a world of sovereign countries, not blocks, because blocks are discriminatory. They can be abusive. The tendency of the United States, which has been to use its financial power against other countries, to loot them, that'll disappear. There'll be too many alternatives. You see, after World War II, there wasn't any other country but the United States. Every other country's industry was completely destroyed. All of Europe, Russia, Japan, China was totally undeveloped. It was just a primitive, economically primitive, not culturally, but economically. And so the United States was it because there wasn't anybody else. That itself is abusive. But there are others now. And they're rising, and they're large. I mean, China is large.
Yes.
Russia is large in territory, not so much in population. India is large. They've had a taste of success, and they like it, and I think they'll continue. And so this creates more opportunities for everybody else. There's not just one unipolar power.
Not anymore.
Not anymore. And this is a good thing. And peace should come out of it. Because what do you ever gain from war? Nothing. Destruction, debt,
and misery.
The death of your best people.
Always the best people.
That's right. So what's to be gained from wars? There's nothing to be gained. No one is, well, not in modern times. People, you can't gain from war.
Yeah.
So we have a reason to be hopeful. But we'll just have to see. It really depends on the leadership of the countries. China's leadership, Russia's, India's, America's, depends on their leadership. And if they are capable of producing leaders who realize what success really is made of, what you do to really have real success, then we can move into more optimistic times. And so I'm much relieved that the threat of war with Russia is over. If the Biden people had stayed in and had continued this type of pressure on Russia, firing missiles into Russia, sooner or later, Putin would have had to react. And if the Russians actually go to war, which they have not done in Ukraine, the world is going to be shaken.
Yeah.
So to see that pass, this is a huge accomplishment. It looked to me for a long time like we were headed directly into nuclear war because Putin, trying to avoid war, was encouraging it.
No, he wasn't.
He kept backing up, trying to avoid war, and it made the American neoconservatives more aggressive. And this was his mistake, but hopefully it's ended now. And that, you see, I think that Trump and Putin have created such strong expectations of a deal that they'll have to deliver. If you look at their public statements, it's almost impossible for them now to renege and not make a deal.
To go back, yes.
Yeah, the expectations are a deal, so they're going to have to make one. Mm-hmm. And that will open up a lot of other positive changes. And the one fly in the ointment is whether or not Israel will be able to get Trump to go to war for them against Iran. That's the real question. I don't think they will because Trump knows war is not in his interest. It takes him away from his agenda. But that's the real big danger. Will Netanyahu be able to get Trump to go to war for Israel against Iran? That's that could blow up the whole thing.
And unfortunately, it's a very serious possibility. As we know, the political positions that Israel has in United States, we know that it's not a fairy tale, it's a possibility, a real possibility.
Yeah, that's the danger that remains.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Rogers, thank you very much for this conversation.